Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, and I'm not coming to you from the KnifeCenter today. We're actually in the woods of northern Maryland camping. We're here at Scott Gossman's annual Gosstoberfest campout, and we're going to be putting the DoubleStar Fury machete to the test. Let's check it out. So here's what you need to know about the DoubleStar Fury. Obviously, it's a very kukri-inspired type of machete design, and we've got a 13-inch blade of S7 tool steel, which S7 is a crazy tough steel to begin with, and this knife is extra thick too. We're over 1/4 of an inch thick, so this should be an absolute monster and able to soak up a ton of abuse. So we're gonna try and put this to the test and really stress the blade as much as we can this weekend. As you can see, we have a sort of a bronze finish, and this is a Cerakote finish, and that should help protect the blade pretty well. As far as the inspiration of the design, the designer of this intended it to kind of walk the line between a tactical breaching tool as well as a general purpose machete. Now, I don't have any doors or walls out here that I can break through. I don't have those anywhere for that matter, but we are in the woods, so we've got plenty of stuff that we can chop on. Let's go see what it can do. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with some green wood. We've got a couple of twisted saplings coming up here right next to a larger tree, so we want to get this out of here. And I'm going to start by taking off this branch, I think, right here. But to do that, I want to clear this little thing out of my way. Now, given the thickness of this knife, the DoubleStar Fury is definitely a heavy chopper. For lighter branch work, such as some of these smaller guys like this, it's a little less ideal because you're swinging around an awful lot. But if that's what you've got, it'll certainly work, or at least we think it should. Let's find out. No problem, of course. Pretty narrow branch, went straight through, no problem. But let's try taking this guy off right here to get started. Because it's so twisted, I'm gonna need to take a couple cuts to get this down cleanly. Okay, the first strike went almost all the way through right there. Yeah, we went about 90% of the way through right there, so let me finish it off. So taken at an angle, this branch is probably about 1 inch or so in diameter. I could have gone through with one strike if I'd swung just a little bit harder. It went almost all the way through though, first try. Definitely nice, good, powerful cuts from the Fury. Oh, come on. Pardon my accuracy. Actually, this is cracking right here, so let's do that. So definitely no problems on this greener wood with the DoubleStar Fury. We're gonna go ahead and saw off that stump so it's level with the ground. We brought our silky saw big boy out here with us just for some of that detail work. That's funny. One thing I will say about the handles on the DoubleStar Fury, even after just this short amount of work, a few things jump out at me immediately. This is a G10 handle. We've got black and brown G10. We've got a nice hook here at the end of the handle, which really helps to hold your hand in place. Even with these few swings I was just doing, you can definitely feel it preventing the knife from slipping forward in your hand, which is definitely appreciated. However, the other thing I notice is a little bit of a drawback, actually. Well, that depends on how you look at it. It does have a fairly heavy texture on the G10. I think it's a little too aggressive for my bare hands, so for the next thing, I'm gonna go ahead and put on some gloves. So now we're gonna move on to some wood that's a little bit harder. We've got a tree that's wind damaged over here that's elevated off the ground, so it hasn't had a chance to dry rot away yet. Let's take some swings at it. Another smaller branch there. I just took kind of a lazy lop at it and still almost cleanly severed it. So one good technique for larger knives, larger chopping knives in general, but kukris especially, is called the snap cut. Now it's a motion where as you come down, you kind of want to snap the blade forward as you're about to strike, rather than holding it steady the whole time. That's going to impart a little bit more force and let you get a little more performance out of the blade. So I'm chopping right on either side of a knot right now, and it's just coming right cleanly through. So because this is free hanging, we've got a little bit of bounce to it. It's kind of robbing a little bit of the power out of my swing. So we're just gonna have to power through. So even though I'm not exactly making rapid progress, again, partly because we've got a lot of bounce to this branch, you can see just how smooth and clean some of these cuts here on the outside shoulders are. Now the grind on the knife is definitely on the more obtuse side. It's set up for chopping, but the edge itself came exceedingly sharp. Definitely very impressed by that right out of the box. So I keep coming back to chopping because really, for me at least, that's what this knife is all about. Now there is a little bit of space here at the ricasso of the blade that's very wide. And at first I thought, you might be able to choke up on that, get behind the edge, do a little bit of fine work. And in a pinch it is doable, but because of the thumb ramp here at the back of the blade, that actually digs into your hand a little bit when you're doing that sort of thing. So not exactly ideal for that out of the box. Of course, this is all woods type of work. This is not testing any sort of the tactical applications of the blade. One of which is the tip. We do have a very fine tip with this knife. You can see we have a long swedge here, starting at the where it starts to drop towards the tip, and it makes a very acute point. Now what I'm interested to see is how tough this S7 is, especially out there where the blade starts to get thinner. So we're gonna take this knife back up to base camp, and we're gonna see if we can do some tip prying tests, and we're also gonna see if we can get some of our fellow campers to baton this knife and really wail on it. So before we go tromping back up through the woods, we're gonna put the knife away in its sheath. Now this is a bolter-on sheath, and it's got two different retention straps. Got the clip there, as well as a snap strap here. Now the retention is decent, but if it does pop out, these straps do hold it in place just in case, which is nice. And looking at the rest of the sheath itself, got several rivets as well as a few slots cut out as well. Now these rivets are Tech-Lock compatible, so that's a definite plus.
Yeah, so I mean with the edge geometry, it takes a little bit to get it going, get a little bit of bounce out, but to give it a good solid swing, the blade pretty deep. Just takes a little bit more than what you may be used to on a thinner edge.
What is it, elm?
Yeah.
So we got this crazy knotty piece of elm right here, and because I really hate my buddy Dwayne, this is what's next on his list.
I might need it.
Damn.
I'm impressed with it.
See, as you can see, it definitely stood up to the batoning we threw at it. That S7 is tough stuff, we knew that. So now the last thing to do, because they've swedged this tip and we have a very kind of an acute and thinner tip, we're gonna drive that into some wood and try to flex it and see what kind of strength we can get out of this S7. And we've got permission from the maker to really beat on this thing, so let's do it. So we did manage to bend the tip just a little bit. It flexed out of the way. Again, I'm not entirely surprised. This was a really hard piece of oak and it's a really thin tip. Doesn't really detract from my overall opinion of this knife, but if you're looking to do some prying, this is not the knife for it. So what are my final thoughts on the DoubleStar Fury machete? Overall, I really like it. Now it's a little bit different than some of the things I'm used to using. I'm usually using knives in this sort of an environment that are more set up for woods use, whereas this is intended to be a little more tactical in nature. That said, it did perform quite well, just a little bit differently than I'm used to. it definitely hits very hard. The edge geometry itself actually worked very well for batoning. That wedge split things very nicely, but because of that thickness, sometimes it does like to bounce a little bit when you're striking, when you do hit with that edge. It's just a little bit different, but it hits hard. It chopped through hardwood very well, chopped through thicker greenwood very well also. The edge itself held up great. Even when we were flexing this blade, even when we bent that tip and then we were able to bend it back, the edge itself is still scary sharp, held up very well. No deformations, no chipping, no warping, nothing to worry about at all. Overall, a very sturdy US-made tool that's gonna perform quite well, I think, especially if you're gonna use it in some things where you might have some more tactical applications in mind. So we wanna say thanks to Scott Gossman for letting us come out into his woods and bang around a bit with a blade. And a big thanks also to Rob from DoubleStar, who sent us this knife to test. We had a lot of fun doing it. Make sure to let us know what you think of the DoubleStar Fury down in the comments. And if you wanna get your hands on one of your own, you can use the links in the description to head over to KnifeCenter.com. Thanks again to Scott and to Rob. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. Good luck, everyone. There it is. Can't use that. Would help if I get it buried in there. We just roll through to the next thing.
Can't use that.
Can't use that. I'm typically. Meh.